From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story touches you, please consider subscribing to support more stories that celebrate the everyday heroes who save lives in our communities. Marcus Rodriguez had been an emergency medical technician for 12 years. And in all that time, he had never gotten used to the way people looked at him when he wore his uniform in public. Today was no different as he stood outside Bella Vista, one of Denver's most exclusive Italian restaurants, checking his reflection in the darkened window. His navy blue paramedic uniform was clean but wrinkled from a 14-hour shift that had included 3 cardiac arrests, 2 car accidents, and a construction site injury that had required him to crawl into a collapsed building to reach the victim. The uniform bore the inevitable traces of his work, a small blood stain on his sleeve from starting an IV, disinfectant smell that no amount of washing seemed to remove completely, and the worn patches where his equipment belt had rubbed against the fabric. Marcus was tired, bone-deep tired that came from spending years running toward emergencies while everyone else ran away. At 34, he had the lean build of someone constantly in motion, calloused hands that had performed CPR hundreds of times, and eyes that had seen more tragedy than most people could imagine. But today was special. Today was his wedding anniversary. His wife Carmen was a nurse at Denver General, and they both understood the challenges of healthcare workers trying to maintain a normal life. Their schedules rarely aligned, their dates were often interrupted by emergency calls, and romantic dinners usually meant grabbing takeout between shifts. But somehow, they had managed to stay happily married for 8 years, supporting each other through the emotional toll of their work. Carmen had made reservations at Bella Vista 2 months ago, specifically requesting the evening when both their schedules showed they'd be free. It was expensive, probably more than they should spend, but Carmen had insisted they deserved one really nice dinner to celebrate their anniversary. "We save lives every day," she had said. "We deserve to feel special sometimes too." Marcus had planned to go home and change after his shift, but a multi-car accident on I-25 had kept him 3 hours past his scheduled end time. By the time he'd finished the paperwork and restocked the ambulance, he barely had time to wash his hands and face in the hospital bathroom before racing across town to meet Carmen. He had texted her, "Running late, go ahead and get our table. Still in uniform, but they'll have to deal with it." Carmen had texted back, "You look handsome in your uniform. I'm proud of you." As Marcus approached the entrance of Bella Vista, he could see through the floor-to-ceiling windows that it was everything Carmen had promised: elegant lighting, white tablecloths, servers in black tie, and an atmosphere that whispered of special occasions and important celebrations. He also noticed the other patrons: businessmen in expensive suits, couples dressed for the theater, women in cocktail dresses, and jewelry that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. For a moment, he hesitated. Maybe he should have insisted on changing. But then he thought about Carmen, already seated inside waiting for him, and about all the anniversaries they had missed because of work. He straightened his shoulders and walked toward the entrance. The hostess at the podium was a young woman in her 20s, impeccably groomed, with the kind of polished appearance that came from working in an upscale establishment. Her name tag read Ashley, and her smile was professional but cool as she looked Marcus up and down. "Good evening," Ashley said, her tone already suggesting this conversation wasn't going to go well. "How can I help you?" "I have a reservation under Rodriguez for 7:30, Marcus said politely. "My wife should already be seated." Ashley consulted her reservation book with exaggerated thoroughness. "Yes, I see the reservation. However," she paused, glancing again at Marcus's uniform, and then around the dining room as if checking to make sure no other customers were watching. "I'm afraid we have a dress code policy." Marcus felt his heart sink. "A dress code?" "Yes, sir. Bella Vista requires business casual attire at minimum. No uniforms, work clothes, or casual wear." Marcus looked down at his uniform, then back at Ashley. "This is my work uniform. I'm a paramedic. I just got off a shift and came straight here." Ashley's expression didn't soften. "I understand, sir, but our policy is quite clear. We need to maintain a certain atmosphere for all our guests." Marcus felt the familiar burn of frustration that came from being judged by his appearance rather than his character. "My wife is already seated. We have a reservation. It's our anniversary." "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't make exceptions. Perhaps you could go home and change, then come back?" The suggestion was absurd, and they both knew it. Going home, changing, and driving back would take at least an hour, by which time their reservation would be cancelled, and Carmen would be sitting alone, embarrassed and disappointed. "Look," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice calm, "I know I don't look like your typical customer, but I promise I won't cause any problems. I just want to have dinner with my wife." Ashley shook her head firmly. "I'm sorry, but the policy is non-negotiable. I could lose my job if I let you in dressed like that." Other customers were beginning to notice the conversation. Marcus could see people at nearby tables glancing over, some with sympathy, others with the satisfied look of people watching someone be put in their place. "Is there a problem here?" The voice belonged to Derek Mitchell, the restaurant's floor manager. Derek was in his 40s, wearing an expensive suit, and the confident demeanor of someone accustomed to handling difficult situations. Ashley turned to him with relief. "Mr. Mitchell, this gentleman wants to dine with us, but he's not appropriately dressed for our establishment." Derek looked Marcus over with the same dismissive assessment. Sir, I'm sure you understand that Bella Vista maintains certain standards. We're not trying to be discriminatory, but we have to consider the comfort of all our guests. Marcus felt his patience wearing thin. My wife is inside waiting for me. We have a reservation. It's our wedding anniversary. Derek's expression didn't change. I'm sorry about that, sir, but our dress code exists for a reason. Perhaps next time you could plan ahead and dress appropriately. The condescension in Derek's voice was unmistakable. Marcus felt his hands clench into fists at his sides, a reaction born from years of being dismissed and undervalued despite the importance of his work. I save lives, Marcus said quietly, his voice tight with controlled anger. I just spent 14 hours running emergency calls, performing CPR, treating trauma victims. I came straight here because I didn't want to miss my anniversary dinner with my wife. Derek shrugged unsympathetically. That's admirable, sir, but it doesn't change our policy. There are plenty of other restaurants that might be more suitable for someone in your line of work. The dismissal was clear, and Marcus felt the familiar sting of being treated as less than because he worked in a service profession. It didn't matter that he had a college degree, that he was certified in advanced life support, that he had saved countless lives. All Derek saw was a uniform that didn't fit their upscale image. Marcus was about to turn and leave when he heard a familiar voice behind him. Derek, what's going on here? The voice belonged to Vincent Castellano, the owner of Bella Vista. Vincent was a distinguished man in his late 50s, with silver hair and the bearing of someone who had built a successful business through hard work and attention to detail. He had come out of his office to check on the evening service and had noticed the commotion at the hostess stand. Derek turned to his boss with obvious relief. Mr. Castellano, I was just explaining our dress code policy to this gentleman. Vincent looked at Marcus, and for a moment, his expression showed the same automatic dismissal that everyone else had displayed. But then something changed. Vincent's eyes focused more intently on Marcus's face, and a flicker of recognition crossed his features. What's your name? Vincent asked Marcus, his tone suddenly different. Marcus Rodriguez, Marcus replied, unsure why the owner was suddenly interested. Vincent's face went pale. He stared at Marcus for a long moment, his expression shifting from confusion to recognition, to something that looked like awe. Marcus Rodriguez, Vincent repeated slowly. Denver General Hospital Paramedic Unit. Marcus nodded, puzzled by the specific question. Yes, sir. How did you? Vincent cut him off, his voice thick with emotion. March 15th. Heart attack at the construction site downtown. You and your partner Jennifer. The memory hit Marcus immediately. 3 months ago, he and his partner Jennifer had responded to a call about a man having a heart attack at a downtown construction site. When they arrived, they found a well-dressed man in his 50s collapsed on the sidewalk, surrounded by panicked bystanders who didn't know what to do. The man had been in full cardiac arrest, no pulse, no breathing, turning blue. Marcus had immediately begun CPR while Jennifer prepared the defibrillator. They had worked on him for 12 minutes, shocking his heart twice before finally getting a pulse back. Even then, the man had been unconscious and critical during the entire transport to Denver General. Marcus remembered the case because it had been touch and go. The man had been technically dead for several minutes, and there had been serious doubt about whether they could save him. But Marcus had refused to give up, continuing CPR even when it seemed hopeless. That was you, Marcus said, the recognition dawning in his own eyes. Vincent nodded, tears beginning to form. You saved my life. The doctors at Denver General told me that if you hadn't started CPR when you did, if you hadn't kept working on me during transport, I would have died. They said it was the most professional emergency response they'd ever seen. The restaurant had gone completely quiet. Other diners had noticed the emotional conversation, and even the servers had stopped their work to watch. Vincent continued, his voice breaking. I was clinically dead for 4 minutes, Marcus. 4 minutes. But you brought me back. You literally brought me back from the dead. Derek and Ashley looked mortified as they began to understand what they had done. They had been trying to throw out the man who had saved their boss's life. I tried to find you, Vincent said. I went to the hospital. I called the ambulance service, but they said you were off duty and couldn't give me your contact information. I wanted to thank you properly, to do something to show my gratitude. Marcus was overwhelmed by the emotion of the moment. In 12 years as a paramedic, he rarely learned what happened to his patients after he delivered them to the hospital. Most of the time, he never knew if his efforts had made a difference, if the people he worked so hard to save actually survived. I remember you, Marcus said softly. You were unconscious for most of it, but I remember talking to you during transport, telling you to hang on, that we were going to get you to the hospital. Vincent wiped his eyes. I heard you. Even though I was unconscious, I heard your voice. The doctor said that sometimes patients can hear even when they're not responsive. Your voice gave me something to fight for. The transformation in the restaurant was immediate and complete. Derek looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Ashley was crying, realizing how badly she had misjudged the situation. Other customers were watching with respect and admiration. Vincent turned to his staff with authority that brooked no argument. Derek, Ashley, I want you to understand something. This man saved my life. Without him, I wouldn't be here. This restaurant wouldn't exist, and none of you would have jobs. He turned back to Marcus. Where is your wife? You said she was waiting inside. Marcus pointed toward the dining room.
Table 12, I think. Carmen Rodriguez. Vincent immediately began moving toward the dining room. Come with me. And Derek, Ashley, you two need to think seriously about what happened here tonight. As they walked through the restaurant, Vincent spoke loudly enough for other patrons to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet Marcus Rodriguez. 3 months ago, this man saved my life. He's a paramedic with Denver General Hospital, and he came here tonight to celebrate his wedding anniversary. The entire dining room erupted in spontaneous applause. Customers stood up from their tables, servers joined in the clapping, and Marcus found himself at the center of the kind of recognition he had never experienced before. Carmen looked up from her table with confusion that quickly turned to pride and joy as she understood what was happening. Vincent personally escorted Marcus to their table and pulled out his chair for him. Mrs. Rodriguez, Vincent said to Carmen, your husband is a hero. He saved my life, and I owe him everything. Carmen looked at Marcus with the same pride she had shown in her text message earlier. He saves lives every day, she said simply. That's just who he is. Vincent wasn't finished. Marcus, Carmen, your dinner tonight is on the house. Everything. And I want you to know that you have a standing invitation to Bella Vista anytime you want to come. You will never pay for a meal here again. But Vincent's gesture went beyond the free meal. Over the next hour, he visited their table several times, sharing details about his recovery, his family's gratitude, and his newfound appreciation for emergency responders. You know what the strangest part was? Vincent told them during one visit. While I was recovering in the hospital, I kept thinking about how I took my life for granted. I was working 16-hour days, never seeing my family, always focused on the business. But lying in that hospital bed, I realized that none of it mattered compared to being alive. He paused, looking directly at Marcus. You didn't just save my life. You gave me back my family. I started leaving work at reasonable hours. I began spending weekends with my grandchildren. I started actually living instead of just existing. As the evening progressed, Marcus and Carmen found themselves the guests of honor at the restaurant. Other patrons approached their table to thank Marcus for his service. The servers treated them like celebrities. Even the kitchen staff came out to meet the paramedic who had saved their boss. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Derek approached their table near the end of the evening. Marcus, Derek said, his voice humble and sincere, I owe you an apology. What I did tonight was wrong, and I'm ashamed of my behavior. I judged you based on your appearance instead of recognizing you for who you are, a hero who saves lives. Marcus looked at Derek with compassion rather than anger. Derek, I understand why you were concerned about the dress code, but I hope you'll remember that uniforms don't always tell the whole story about a person. Derek nodded seriously. I will. And I want you to know that I'm going to recommend that we change our policy. Anyone in a medical, fire, or police uniform should always be welcome here, regardless of our dress code.
Vincent, who had been listening to the conversation, immediately agreed. That's an excellent idea, Derek. In fact, let's go further. Any first responder in uniform eats here for free. It's the least we can do for the people who put their lives on the line for us every day. As Marcus and Carmen prepared to leave, Vincent walked them to the door personally. Marcus, I want you to have this, he said, handing him a business card with his personal phone number written on the back. If you ever need anything at all, you call me. I mean that. Marcus was touched by the gesture, but he shook his head. Vincent, you don't owe me anything. I was just doing my job. Vincent looked at him seriously. Marcus, what you call just doing your job is the reason I'm alive today. The reason my wife still has a husband, my children still have a father, and my grandchildren still have a grandfather. You can't minimize that. As they walked to their car, Carmen took Marcus's arm. I'm so proud of you, she said. Not just for tonight, but for who you are every day. Marcus smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the excellent meal they had just enjoyed. Carmen, do you know what the best part of tonight was? What? It wasn't the recognition or the free dinner. It was learning that Vincent survived, that he's doing well, that he's spending time with his family. Most of the time, we never know what happens to our patients. Tonight, I got to see that our work actually mattered. Carmen squeezed his arm. Your work always matters, Marcus, even when you don't get to see the results. The story of Marcus Rodriguez's experience at Bella Vista spread quickly through Denver's first responder community and beyond. Vincent made good on his promise to welcome all first responders, and the restaurant became known as a place that honored those who served the community. More importantly, the incident sparked conversations about how society treats service workers, especially those in uniforms. Many other businesses began reconsidering their dress codes and policies, recognizing that the people who keep communities safe and healthy deserve respect and recognition. Derek kept his job, but the experience changed him fundamentally. He became an advocate for treating all customers with dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance or occupation. Ashley, too, learned from the experience and went on to become a strong supporter of first responder recognition programs. Marcus continued his work as a paramedic, but with a renewed sense of purpose. The recognition he received that night reminded him why he had chosen his profession, not for the money or the glory, but for the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives at their most vulnerable moments. Vincent's recovery was complete, and true to his word, he began balancing his work life with family time. He often spoke about his second chance at life, and credited Marcus not just with saving him physically, but with helping him rediscover what truly mattered. The incident became a teaching moment for the entire community about the importance of recognizing and respecting the everyday heroes who work among us. It reminded people that behind every uniform, whether it's a paramedic, police officer, firefighter, or nurse, is a person who has chosen to dedicate their life to serving others. Marcus and Carmen still celebrate their anniversary at Bella Vista every year, but now they do so as honored guests rather than customers fighting for basic respect. Vincent always makes sure to stop by their table, not just to chat but to publicly thank Marcus again for the gift of life. The story serves as a powerful reminder that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear uniforms that smell like disinfectant and bear the stains of saving lives. And sometimes the person you're tempted to dismiss based on appearance is the very person who might one day save your life. Marcus Rodriguez's experience that night taught everyone involved that true class isn't about what you wear or how much money you have. It's about how you treat others and the difference you make in the world. Remember, the next time you see someone in a uniform, whether they're a paramedic, nurse, firefighter, or any other service worker, remember that they might be the hero who saves your life someday. Respect and kindness cost nothing, but they mean everything to those who dedicate their lives to serving others.